Welcome to this lesson on writing expressions from word problems. Today our objective is to create expressions from word problems. Alright, so we've already talked about expressions. Expressions are number sentences that involve only operations and numbers or variables. So here what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the important information in the word problem to create an expression. Now, important questions that you need to ask yourself when you're creating an expression. 1. What don't I know? You need to know what you don't know in order to know what you're looking for. 2. How are you going to represent that? 3. What operation or operations do you use and where? And 4. What's the expression? Okay, so let's look at the problem first. Write an expression to help them determine how much money they would make total after their sale. So highlight this in yellow. How much money they would make total after their sale. Well, total is going to be important because total tells us that we need to add stuff together. So here we know we're going to add. So that's important. So we're going to circle that. Then let's actually go through and read the information. At the holiday bake sale, you can purchase several different sweet treats like brownies, cookies, Rice Krispie treats, and cake pops. Charlotte decided to sell cookies for 25 cents, brownies for 50 cents, Rice Krispies for 75 cents, and cake pops for $1.25. So through here, if I want to know the total they made after the sale, it would be important to know how much they sold for. So important numbers would include 25 cents, $1.25, 75 cents, and 50 cents because I know each of those is going to help me find my total. Now, she's selling them for that much, and we know that it would be that much each. Okay, so in this case, we know that if I buy one cookie, it's 25 cents, but if I buy two cookies, it's going to be 50 cents because I have to pay 25 cents for both cookies. All right, so here's some fluff information. The holiday bake sale. Doesn't matter that you can purchase different treats, and doesn't really matter what they are since it shows us again down here. Decided to sell the cookies, that's important, and it is important, so we need cookies, brownies, Rice Krispies, and cake pops. All right, and it's important to note that we're looking for an expression, and we know expressions do not have answers, so they should not have an equal sign. So when we're talking about what don't we know, well, you have to think about what it's asking you for. It's asking you for the total after their sale. So the total would mean how much did they make on the cookies, the brownies, the Rice Krispies, and the cake pops all added together. Well, in here it does not tell me how much of each I sold. So it doesn't tell me. Actually, I'm going to put this in different fonts so that way we can decipher, you can see the difference between answer and question. So what we don't know is how many cake pops were sold, how many cookies were sold, how many brownies were sold, and how many Rice Krispies were sold. Okay, when I don't know something, we know from our vocabulary terms that we have what we use or what we call variables. Variables represent numbers that can change, and they also represent what we don't know. So looking at this, could the number of cookies we sell change? Absolutely. So the number of cookies we sell could change in terms of it could change from one day to the next, 1 year to the next, anything. So it also, in this case, is something we don't know. Okay, so in this case, we're going to represent these by using variables. Okay, but now I have to tell, this is what we actually call defining the variable. You're going to tell what variable you're going to use, and you're going to explain what that variable represents. So I'm going to start with cookies. I'm going to use C for cookies, but C doesn't just represent cookies, okay, because that could mean the number of cookies we have total. It could mean broken cookies. It could mean ugly cookies. You have to be specific. So C for me is going to represent, and what don't we know? We don't know how many cookies were sold. So C equals or represents the number of cookies sold. Okay, and then I'm going to look at my next one, which was brownies, and I'm going to use B. So B represents the number of brownies sold. Okay, and then I have Rice Krispies. Now a lot of students would go RC, but RC is two variables, which would mean R times C. You can't use two variables to represent one thing. So I'm just going to use R, since I already used C over here. And I can't use the same variable twice because one variable can only represent one thing. You cannot have one variable represent two different things. So C can't represent cookies and Rice Krispies. It can only represent one. And since I already used it for cookies, it's no longer available. So R is going to represent the number of Rice Krispies sold. And then I have Cake Pops left. Again, C is used, so I'm going to use P. And P represents the number of Cake Pops sold. All right, so now we're looking at what operations do we need to use and where. So I know that in order to find out, so we have to think, in order to find out how much money we made total on each of the things, we would have to take the number of brownies sold and multiply it by 50 cents. So if I sold 2 brownies, I know I made $1. But I don't know how many brownies I sold, so I'm actually going to use my variables. I'm going to use the C and put it with the 25 cents because cookies were worth 25 cents. I'm going to use the B and put it with the 50 cents because brownies were 50 cents each. R is representing the Rice Krispies, and those are 75 cents each. And then we have, what color haven't I used here? Let's go with purple. Ooh, that might be okay. Nope, too close to the other one. Let's use this reddish color. There we go, it's more pink. The P for Cake Pops is going to go with 125 because each cake pop was $1.25. So now I know that if I had known how many cookies were sold, I would have taken that and multiplied it by 25 cents. But since I don't know, I have to multiply the variable and the 25 cents. So I have to multiply the number of cookies sold and 25 cents. I also need to multiply the number of brownies sold and how much they were sold for, which is 50 cents. Okay, so, and I should say, and their cost, 25 cents. And their cost, which was 50 cents. Okay, I also, that's not all that I have to multiply though, I also have to multiply the number of Rice Krispies sold and their cost, and I know that I'm running out of room here, so I'm actually going to move this down and move these pieces up so I have a little bit more space. Hopefully that helps out a little bit. Actually, now I can continue here, so multiply the number of Rice Krispies sold and their cost. And their cost in this case was 75 cents. And multiply the number of cake pops sold and and I shouldn't say cost, I should say price, because cost implies what I had to spend on them or what Charla had to spend on them. So $1.25. And let's change this to price because that actually is what that is. It's the price that they are selling them to you for. But now, if I just leave it at this with all these multiplication problems, that leaves me with 4 different expressions. I don't want 4 different expressions because I want the total. We knew that we were going to have to add. So in this case, I'm going to have to add all of the products together to get the total. So in this case, the number of cookies sold is represented by C. So we're going to replace the number of cookies sold with C. And we said we have to multiply that by its cost, which was 25 cents. Now we don't put the $sign in when we're writing it as an expression or equation. Now we said we have to add that with the number of brownies, which we sold, which we don't know, so we put in B for that, but we do know their price, which is 50 cents. Now remember, when you see a variable connected to a number, that means multiplication. If it helps, you can draw in your asterisk. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do that so that way you don't forget. But remember, you cannot use an X because an X is a variable. And then I'm going to do R, which represents the number of Rice Krispies sold, and their price, which was 75 cents. And I have to add that to the cake pops, which was represented by the cake pops sold, which was represented by P, times the $1.25 that they were sold for. So this right here would be my expression that would tell Charla how much money she would make on that bake sale, just based on how much she sold and how much they were each worth. Okay, now let's take that one step further. You know that they spent $55.76 on materials for the bake sale. How would this be added to your expression to help them determine their profit? Now, I purposely put this word in here, added. If you spend $55.76, the important part here, so $55.76 is important, and it's important to note that you spent it. Spent it tells us what we're going to do. Spent it means you have to subtract it from whatever you earned. Okay, and profit helps us know that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for how much we made minus our cost to make the material or to make the products. Okay, so again, we're writing an expression to determine the profit. Expression to help determine the profit. So now, do we still need to know all of this information back here? Do we still need to know how much we earned? Absolutely. So don't go through and do all this extra work. Okay, use what you already have. You know that by doing this multiplication and addition, that you would be able to figure out the total that you would make before taking away your cost. So let's use that. But now I also know that I would have to subtract the $55.76 that was spent. Now the thing is, do I subtract that at the very end, or can I just throw it at the beginning and do $55.76 minus, so $55.76. So this is my cost minus what I made. That's not going to help me out because I need what I made minus my cost. So that doesn't work. And I can't plop it in the middle because that interrupts figuring out how much I made. So I have to put how much I made first minus my cost, which was $55.76. Okay? You do not need to put this first part in parentheses either because of the fact that the order of operations tells us to do this first. It tells us to do all the multiplication first, and then it tells us to add from left to right. So we would have to add each of these things together after we multiplied before we could subtract. All right, so this is going to take us some time to get used to and to work through. So here's your U-Try problem for the night. You have the ski resort and it costs $20 per person to rent boots, $200 per person to rent skis, and $5 per person to rent poles. And you know, if the family cost for a pack of lift tickets is $225, and I'll take that extra letter out there. So you can just assume that they're getting the $225 lift tickets, and you need to write an expression that would help determine how much money they would be spending at the ski resort. Again, you need to go through and do each of these pieces. You have to have an answer for each of these. When you go into your U-Try, each of these questions is in the U-Try quiz, so make sure you fill it out as best you can. As always, if you have any questions, please be sure to email me or write them down so we can go over them in class.